And welcome to tonight's meeting of the Cabinet. My name is Councillor Phil Knowles. I'm the leader of Harbour District Council, and there are one or two housekeeping points which I would like to draw to everyone's attention. All present are reminded to adhere to the following safety procedures. Wipes and sanitizer have been provided on the table. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed by Harbour District Council. Members and officers must use the desk microphones in order for this to work. Only 2 microphones in addition to the chairman's can be on at the same time. Mobile phones, members and the public should switch off their mobile phones or at least put them onto silent. The fire exits are clearly marked, and the meeting point, should anything happen, because there are no drills expected, will be at the top of Mill Hill Car Park. Before we start the meeting formally, I think we will go around the table just so that everyone can introduce themselves, and we'll start off with Councillor Whitmore at the end there and ask you to introduce yourself and then work around the table.
Councillor Jim Knight, and I am the Cabinet Lead for
Mark Graves, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Finance.
Good evening, Darren Woodywis. I am the Portfolio Holder for the Environmental and Climate Change.
Simon Colson, Portfolio Holder for Planning.
And we have a number of officers with us, so I'm going to ask the officers to kindly do the same.
Director of Communities and Wellbeing, and Claire Pattinson, Interim Director for Governance and Law and Monitoring Officer. Liz Elliott, Interim Chief Executive.
One officer.
Lynn Newman, Democratic Services Officer.
David Atkinson, Director of Planning.
Liz Nelson, Head of Strategic Local Planning. Julia. Business Planning Officer. Excuse me. Therapy Community Safety Manager.
Great, thank you very much for that. So we will move on with the agenda. And the first item is apologies for absence, and we have apologies from Councillor Beattie. If that could be noted. And second item is to receive any declarations of interest from members. Any members have any interest that they wish to declare? No? That will be noted. Right. Item 3 is to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of the Cabinet held on July the 10th, 2023. I think they've already been circulated. Is everyone happy that I should sign that? Would somebody like to formally move it? By Councillor Knight, seconded by Councillor Graves. Thank you. I'll sign those on accurate record. To item 4, which is the Corporate Plan 2023. This is laid out in detail within the body of the report. There are recommendations there to note the key activities for 2023-24 set out in Appendix A, and the timeline to refresh the corporate plan for 2024-25 onwards. This is obviously a live document. It evolves as we go through the council's life. And obviously it will be amended, changed, whatever you want to call it, over the years that as we move through, and as things are addressed and resolved. Any of the officers want to make any comments on it? No? Everyone is happy? Any members who want to raise any points on it? Councillor Graves.
Thank you, Leader. Could I just quickly ask about the numbering ordering in the first section? On point, it goes KA 0109, and then it goes back to 0104, and it follows on 0111. So the 0104, because 0104 is missing earlier in the document, can I just double check, is that meant to be 10 or the out of sequence because it is an evolving document?
I'll ask the Group Chief Executive to answer that, will you?
Okay, it's not that strictly out of sequence. What's happened is some of those closed actions are no longer in there, so the references are not in the table. They are the Pentana reference that we use in there as well. So once an action is closed, it moves from live to closed, and therefore is no longer in the document. That's why they're not in the right order as such, but they are all the live actions in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that is answered. Anyone else, any questions at all? Okay, well, I think on that, we'll just have to, that's if someone to move that. That's Councillor Woodywis, someone to second it. Councillor Whitmore, all those in favour? Anyone against? That is carried. Item number 5, as I have here, is the, well, now I've got 2 here. I've got one here that says report financial outturn corporate quarter turn, and I've got this one here which says bad debt write-off revenues and benefits.
It's the performance report, so you've got this one slightly out of order.
Okay. Right, okay, so we've got the performance report, financial outturn and corporate quarter turn year ending 31st of March 2024. Oscar, Head of Finance, if you'd like to say something on this one.
Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to go to Carolyn if she wants to.
This is the performance finance report, corporate report 1. This is the first time we've combined the 2 reports. If I could just draw your attention to the recommendations, which the executive summary for financial performance, we're forecasting an spend of 683k, and for capital it's noted about performance. Recommendations are noted on the 2nd page. First of all, it's for the Cabinet to consider comments on the contents of this report. And secondly, there's a recommendation about an allocation of fees. So, you know,
Councillor Graves.
Yes, it's not really questions at this stage, but just a couple of comments, if I may, just to repeat what Carolyn Valens has said. There is a further request for an allocation of 300,000 towards the capital and contracting. Mentioned in paragraph 3.3 about being to meet the unavoidable costs of procuring the environment waste contract. National government is making a lot of changes in that area, so it is a prudent thing to do to put some work in that area. As the senior financial officer has said, there is a forecast underspend of 83,000, of which 220,000 relates to prior year carry forward in terms of an accounting adjustment. I won't, Jay, will be pleased to know, go into too many of the ins and outs, but just to mention that one of the most significant issues, benefit to the council now, is the changed interest rate world. It's finally benefiting the council again. It did a long time ago, and then we've had many years of
The officer. So we're formally noting that, I think, are we? Okay, so we note that. Councillor Graves, but surely come back again.
just to make one further point, in Councillor Beale's absence, there are this is the first report that merges the key activity quarterly reports in terms of with the finance report. I just want to note that because
Were you formally moving that we note that to a seconder? Okay, all in favour? Anyone against? That is duly carried. We now move on to the item 6, which is the bad debt write-offs, revenues and benefits. And Councillor Graves, do you want to start up on that?
Yeah, just a brief introduction then. Very happy if an officer wants to continue. This is always an unfortunate issue of having to write off funds, but the big appearance eyes of the legal entity that is Jules Limited and the unavoidable. There's a few other smaller losses which are going to be extremely difficult or impossible to recover, so it's prudent to put them in the write-off schedule. Is that may potentially be recoverable, they're very, very low in this particular.
It's one of those reports that's very sad from somebody in my position to have to report, but it's a fact of life, I'm afraid.
Councillor Willis.
Is it worth noting that there's a timing issue that we have so much debt from Jules on our book rather than actually a failure to collect? So the revenue office bringing in the business rates after the fact thing, wasn't it?
Okay, gentlemen. Sorry.
Sort of a timing issue, but it's the fact that it's gone into administration who would have carried on collecting the debt. So that they would have owed that debt regardless of the timing, if that makes sense, because even if it was after, it still would have been due because they would have backdated it. That's the total.
Okay, anybody else want to make any comments at all? No, so again, we have to note that report. Yes. So can someone move that we note it? Councillor Graves, is there a second? Councillor Knight, thank you very much indeed. All those in favour? Anyone against? No, that is carried. We now move on to item 7, which is the terms of reference to the Cabinet Subcommittee grants. All the members have had the details on this. Portfolio holder is Councillor Whitmore. I don't know whether you have any comments that you want to particularly add to this. No, you're happy with the report? Thank you very much. So it does ask us to create a subcommittee and it actually asks us to create a subcommittee in line with the with what we have in front of us. Yeah, so it is constitutionally required that we have this committee, but also we seem to have been operating for a lengthy period in error. We've had this panel made up of more members and diversity that wasn't actually in the actual issue. So where we are with this is that we're required at this moment in time to have the constitution followed. We need 3 members. As leader, obviously, I'm more than happy to be on that committee. Councillor Gordon has indicated to be on it. So that's, have we got any other member of the Cabinet who would like to put their name forward to be on to the Grants Committee? So can we say that it will be myself and Councillor Gorton and either Councillor Williams or Councillor Knight, and obviously one or the other will be on the committee and the other one will substitute. Does that work for you, Claire? Everyone in favour on that? Anyone against? No? Okay, so we will formally move the constitution of that subcommittee. So could somebody actually move that? Willis, can someone second it? Councillor Graves, all those in favour? Anyone against? That's carried. Okay. We now move on to the Leicester and Leicestershire Statement of Common Ground relating to housing and employment land needs. What I'm going to do for this item is obviously hand over to the Cabinet lead, but I'm just going to check with our officers to see if they wish to make any comment before we actually go into the discussion on this, or whether you're prepared to leave it to the Cabinet lead to take front foot.
The Cabinet lead's well briefed, Chairman. I'm happy to leave it to the Cabinet lead.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure I will call on the director and head service for any information we may require during this debate. And I do think we're spending a bit of time on this issue because it's very important to council. This report this evening invites us to make a recommendation to full council in a couple of weeks regarding the signing of the statement of common ground related to housing and employment land. And before we go into the reasons why this issue has got a lot of history, the council, the previous administration chose not to make this decision to put it back a bit. I don't criticise them for that because I think it's been useful information coming out all the time. It is a changing landscape. But in the last few weeks, there's been a lot of information going around. It may be the further information Chairman before that is to happen, then I'm sure we will want to look at that if anything new or different comes out. But as things stand, the most important thing I think we have to face consideration in taking this decision is what do we need to do to get our new local plan through that process. We are front of the inspector, but I for one want to remove all obstacles possible to get us to that point as quickly as possible. And it's fair to say that the officers have been waiting for the decision in order to progress to set the number of houses that the local plan will need to provide for. Now, in previous to this administration being formed, Chairman, I was one of the first councillors to call for Leicester to do more, to develop brownfield sites and to build up and to get people living in the city centre in good quality housing. We had a number of meetings with the head of planning, Grant Butterworth, and we challenged them to go away and do that. And it's fair to say that they have addressed that. They've tried to look for new ways. I know there's a lot of debate about the impact on heritage buildings by building up. I don't think anyone was calling on them to, reinvent 1960 skyscrapers again. I think we were talking about going up a few more blocks, and I think we should keep challenging them to do that. And if they can find more land or brownfield sites, they can manage to bring them forward, particularly around now. And in other areas of land which absolutely no longer required for employment uses, offices and so on. We should keep pressing them to do that. And if they can, my understanding is that if they can deliver more housing, then that means we can revisit and we and the other districts would have to do less. But as I've already said, the most important consideration is make sure that we can get our local plans in place so that we can use it to determine planning applications. Now, the duty to cooperate, much has been said of the government's intention to abolish that. We know that it is in the Levelling Up Bill. We just don't know when that is going to happen. And when it does, as is usual with any government, it won't just be repealed, it will be replaced with a new requirement on local authorities, not just us, all planning authorities. And my understanding is that will be called the policy alignment test. Now, if anybody wants to know more about that, I'm very sure the director and the head of service will be able to advise us and tell us. We don't know the full detail of that because, as usual, that will come in after the currently stuck in the House of Lords. It could be some time before that happens. So I don't think kicking this into the long grass or taking further time is going to help us because we need to get on with our local plan. So for all those reasons, Chairman, putting to the view that we do need to sign this in order to move forward. Doing nothing is not acceptable for delay or procrastination. And therefore I'm very willing in the circumstances say I'm completely happy about it because I've already said I believe that Leicester does need to do as much as it can to meet its challenges to do that. But as things stand, this evening, Chairman, I'm willing to move this report.
Okay, before we open up the debate, is someone wanting to second that? That's all right. Thank you very much indeed. I think the important phrase that Councillor Gorton has used there several times is that this is as it stands this evening. Information is being teased out at every opportunity, and we are looking to get more and more assurances and having more and more discussions on this. And I know that our officers would be extremely supportive if suddenly information came out of the woodwork that said, hey, you know, there is another way on this. Our officers would be very willing to suddenly look at it again and to perhaps take a different view with their recommendations. But as we stand tonight, this is where the decision has got to be made. But I think it is important to repeat that it is as we stand tonight, because that's the recommendation that will go to council, but it can be changed, and it would be changed if any more information came out. Do you want to come in on that?
Thank you, Chairman. I think you've covered the ground very well on Councillor Galton. Thank you.
Okay, any members who want to make any comments at all? Councillor.
Just a brief comment, Chair, really, which is like many other members just a few months ago, the position of information from the government and from the council was different to what it is today. I think it's a very good comment that as we stand today, this is where we are. A few months ago, I was significantly opposed to this particular issue. I had looked at information and absorbed it as I was going along, as I was listening to officers reading the reports. However, we're in a cabinet with the district council, and we had to carefully take all of the information we receive and we are given. The judgment is that there is, as that stands today, no other good option. Very Holder has proposed.
We put it to a vote. I would just say that I long advocated that we shouldn't be signing this. I felt that we should be responsibility to take more of the burden. As Councillor Gorton says, that stance of pushing them to take more burden will continue, but it will continue alongside looking at all other options as well. We've had many meetings, lots of briefings, and I want to thank our officers for some very extensive briefings, some that have gone on to nearly 10 o'clock at night going through this. So it's not a decision that's being taken lightly. But the prime thing that we have to do is we have to protect the district. We have a duty to protect the district. So we have to put this in place as it stands tonight with this recommendation to purely and simply make sure that we have every opportunity to protect the local plan, because that's a vitally important document. And if there's anything that actually causes that to stumble, then we are in real trouble as a district. So I'm not sure there's much more we can add. We are reluctantly making this recommendation. As I say, unless any other member wants to comment on the subject, and it's one of deep concern to everyone. If no one else wishes to make a comment, then I would ask you to vote. All those in favour of the recommendation, please show. Anyone against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Gorton, for your work on that. Council Community Safety 3-year plan 2023-26. I'm on the right page. There's been a agenda tonight with an awful lot of paperwork. That's one of the officers who can introduce this. There's the Community Safety Partnership Manager, Sarah Pickering. Sarah, would you like to say a few words on this? Or Councillor Willis, if you'd like to lead it up, Darren?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, so this is underneath my portfolio. It was prepared by the previous administration, so I will be.
That's the duty for us to put together a 3-year plan for community safety. So this is our 3-year plan starting from this April through the 3 years. Obviously, it has been delayed due to various reasons, elections, etc. We do have an action plan that is already running based on this plan. The recommendation tonight is for us to adopt this 3-year plan. There is a strategic assessment behind it, and that's in the paperwork, which you can look at if you haven't already.
We're looking into this. We've got the reasons for the recommendation listed down, which is that it is a statutory requirement for the local authority. The plan setting out how the council and its partners are working together to tackle crime and disorder, including serious and organised crime, antisocial behaviour, tackle alcohol and substance misuse, and tackle any other behaviour which has a negative effect on our local environment. 3-year community plan meets this requirement and will inform local authorities' priorities and ensure that this meets the requirements for all communities within the district. I think the phrase there is obviously important, it's for all of them. So is anyone who'd like to formally comment on that or move it? Councillor Willis?
Yes, I'd just like to thank the team for their effort in preparing this report, and I formally move it.
Right, is there a seconder? Councillor Walton, do you want to comment?
Yeah, Chair, obviously the key part of this is the police. Vital and continue to work with the police as we do. I do recall that in previous times we had a sort of briefing with the department when he or she councillors, and we will be able to have a discussion about how policing was going and what we could do. I do think it's important that the senior officers do know, again, well, in a day-to-day basis, we obviously deal with the local body and the police community support officers. But I mean, I for one I've never met the inspector, been post well over a year now. So I think that would, in order to drive this plan through and make sure that the strategy is successful, I think just be helpful just to improve our communication.
Well, I can tell you, thanks for the lead-in. Our officers have already secured a date in the diary for the cabinet to meet with the local police lead. That will be circulated shortly if it hasn't already been circulated. So that will be done accordingly. So good point, Councillor Gordon.
Brief comment really on behalf of many people and in the public. There's obviously a desire to ensure that there are enough officers, and I know we're not involved in the police, but we obviously have to make that comment that where it comes to the safety of our district, we want reassurance that there are enough officers and there are enough officers out there at the relevant times. Having called 999 a few weeks back and nothing happened because there weren't enough officers on duty, that was a little bit disappointing. So yes, and the crime rates as well, obviously on behalf of all our residents, whilst the number of recorded crimes might be at one of the recorded lowest levels, the rates on resolving certain crimes also dropped significantly. And I think it's just worthy of pointing out that a lot of people would like to see that go up again. Thank you very much.
Right. I think it is important that obviously we have the best possible things for the police. And we're certainly in a situation at the moment where we're going to be meeting them next week on one issue, and which will, I'm sure, develop into several other issues. And then we've got the cabinet meeting following on fairly quickly after that. So I think it's important because it's not just the policing for Harborough, for the whole of Harborough issue, which I think is vitally important. Anyone else wishing to make any comments at all? No? Okay, well, we'll put that formally to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? No? That's carried. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Right, that then moves us on now to item 10, which is reference to the mechanical and electrical management contract, which I believe is the legal officer is just looking for it. That we can get the right words, and then we have to go into private session subject to the vote.
Oh. So it's suggested exemption is under paragraph 3 of part 1. Sorry, Chair, it's suggested that you move to go in private, which you are entitled to do in accordance with paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A, which is part 1 of the Local Government Act 1972, which is in relation to the contract. You are discussing potentially contract terms which would be commercially sensitive, and therefore it is appropriate for Cabinet to make a resolution to exclude members of the public or the press who are in to be in attendance or were any to be watching online, and therefore it is appropriate for you to make that resolution if you are prepared to move into private. And I would just ask that as a cabinet you consider and take that decision.
Okay, well, you've heard what the Chief Legal Officer has to say, and I'm quite happy to move that from the chair. Is there a second then? All those in favour? Anyone against? Okay, we'll move into private session, but before we do, I'd just like to thank anyone who's been listening online, and we now have to move into private session, but thank you very much.